Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Matt Watson. Hi, Matt.
What's up, man?
I'm just trying to figure out how I can be a little more innovative.
I'm feeling like I'm in the zone today, baby.
Are you? Why?
I'm in the zone.
Why? Just ready to just take over the world?
I'm ready to innovate. Let's go.
You know what really helps when it comes to innovation is being around other people that are trying to do the same thing.
It does a lot because listening to your dumb relatives that think you're crazy are not a good influence.
True.
You need to be around other people who are as crazy as you as an entrepreneur.
You know who is as crazy as we are as entrepreneurs? Today's guest, Kevin McGinnis, who's the CEO of the Keystone Community Corporation. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Just another day here in Startup Hustle Nation. Yeah.
The Hustle Nation is alive and kicking.
Kevin, you have a really interesting background, and you're also leading an amazing project for our city. First off, thank you ahead of explaining what that is. But, let's first talk about your history a little bit, and then we'll kind of lead that up into the innovation district that you are going to build.
Yeah. So
Kevin, who are you?
Yeah, this is deep thoughts from Kevin McGinnis. This is going to be a problem already.
That's where I need a sound effect, but yeah.
Yeah, like the boing.
No, like really kind of like a wandering kind of gentle, like walking down a path kind of, meandering sound. All right, back to the podcast.
Yeah. So my background. A lot of people don't know this, but I started on the phones in outbound telemarketing at Sprint like 25 years ago. So started at the ground floor, and I did spend 24 years there, but was really blessed to stay at the front edge of the business the entire time. Never felt like I was kind of in the core. So I was always working on, we established retail and long distance, was doing that. We established kind of the first relational marketing engine back in the 90s, did some of that work.
You're an example of the guy who really climbed the corporate ladder.
Yeah, I was just thinking like mailroom.
Yeah.
That's like one step above it.
Yeah.
A little bit
or
like
below
that.
it.
Yeah,
Maybe it could have been below it. I'm not sure. I think about outbound call center, and I think I'd rather work in the mailroom.
It was not a good job.
Yeah.
It wasn't the worst job I've
It was
ever
a great
had.
job because it got you into the ones that you did later.
That's right.
Yeah.
For sure. I tell people this all the time. Most of the most important skills that you'll learn in your professional career are oftentimes in your very first job. And it's not necessarily what you'll learn later on when you get into more sophisticated roles or higher roles in an organization or something. But I learned a lot in the restaurant industry. I worked in a meatpacking plant, and then the call center. That was such a great opportunity to learn communication skills, to overcome failure and rejection. That's really what outbound telemarketing is all about.
Full Scale COO was once our intern at a completely different company. So, you got to start somewhere.
For sure.
You get your foot in the door. So, now you ended up doing some other stuff with Sprint that's relevant. It's actually not what we're going to talk about today, but it kind of is related. You were involved in the Sprint Accelerator, weren't you?
Yeah, it's part of the story, I guess.
Yeah.
When people ask how did Keystone start, it kind of started when I was running the product organization at Sprint, and we were trying to figure out how do we as a large corporation handle innovation. We spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley talking to VCs, trying to get access to portfolio companies that they had. We spent a lot of time, we were partners at MIT Media Lab, Singularity University, things like that. And then it dawned on us that, perhaps there's this inbound marketing model where we could throw out a shingle and invite entrepreneurs to come solve our problems for us. And that was the genesis of the Sprint Accelerator was, how do we attract entrepreneurs to the company? And, how do we do that here in Kansas City from a community perspective?
As we smile for the selfie stick.
Oh, it got your bald spot. That was perfect.
Dude, the best part about the selfie stick, which you can find those pictures, when they turn out well, I've been told, they're teaching me how to use my phone. They're like, you need to wipe the thumbprint off your lens. I'm like, oh, that's why they're not working. Yeah, so you can check those out at Startup Hustle Podcast on Instagram. So at the Sprint Accelerator, I mean, what did you guys learn about how to, attract or bring business in? I mean, what was the key there? Because the Sprint Accelerator is still a pretty vibrant part of Sprint, isn't it?
Yeah, still going now. Still going now.
Is it officially the Techstars Accelerator now, or is that different?
Nope, that's different.
It is different.
So
okay.
when we opened the Sprint Accelerator, my belief was the executives at Sprint wouldn't trust me to run an accelerator. They thought it was rocket science or something more complicated than it was. So how do you bring in someone who's doing this, partnering with corporations, and so recruited Techstars to come to Kansas City. And they were the operating entity behind the Sprint Accelerator.
Okay.
That part of the cohort.
Okay.
For the first 3 years. And then our contract expired with them. We wanted to modify the model. Techstars is pretty rigid about that early stage model. And
so now they both exist?
Yes.
Oh,
so
okay. That was the part I missed. Okay.
Yep. So Techstars now has a city program here that Lisa Mitchell runs. They're taking a hiatus this year while she's in Indianapolis. And then Sprint still does their program and started partnering with Dairy Farmers of America a couple years ago. And so it's kind of a shared program between Sprint and Dairy Farmers of America.
Didn't you recently use Dairy Farmers of America as an example of people that didn't use tech? And then whoever was here was like, actually, they're pretty big.
You probably got shamed after that comment a little bit because I was surprised to find out what they do.
Yeah, no, and I think someone had just told me prior to that, but I would have had the same impression. But that,
they're the largest privately owned company in Kansas City.
And
are they really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're a massive technology company.
At the moment, we're going to change that.
All right.
You heard it here first.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
How well have these accelerators worked for Sprint to achieve their goals? Like Sprint's goal of this accelerator, did they achieve their goals of doing this, or was it just strictly a community project that it didn't really matter, or?
It's an interesting question because it depends on who you talk about or who you talk to in the company about what their goals are. So years ago, Sprint's former head of corporate communications, a guy named Bill White, used to say that all of the money that we put into the accelerator was worth it just from a PR perspective.
Sure.
I mean, Sprint elevating their brand as an innovator, Sprint getting out in the startup community, those types of things. Just that investment has been tremendous for that company. The opportunity to use it as a business development channel, throw out the problems, get answers back to things that you're trying to solve for. I mean, it's kind of like first-party research.
Yeah. To me, the most valuable thing would be, we had this problem at Vin Solutions, right? When we were doing $30 million a year, and there were all sorts of projects we'd love to do and didn't have time to do. It would have been great to, in sprints, orders of magnitude bigger, right? We have these projects we'd like to do, but we don't have anybody to do them. Can we bring some smart entrepreneurs in to come help us solve these challenges and solve these problems? I would have loved that back then, and I was a little bitty company compared to
that's one of the things that we see from all the corporations. So it's one of the reasons we're doing Keystone is because when you go talk to corporate innovation teams, it's the same story everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast you guys did with Darcy, and I think you nailed it where these big companies, they're focused on their core business model. They're focused on being as efficient as they can possibly be and scaling as fast as they can around that core business model. But they all are starting to understand that innovation is a part of their future.
Yeah.
So they hire one or two people and they give them a little bit of money and they say, go.
They lack agility.
Well, with Darcy, were we talking about H&R Block?
We were talking about, and
they were an example, they kind of spun out.
Yeah, and if you want to, if you're listening,
group.
You want to check that out. That episode's titled "Innovation Gap," and it was just it had to do with, the lack of big companies working efficiently with small companies, and some of the issues with megacorps like Sprint is they just don't move quickly on a lot of stuff. They're just trying to change things or do different stuff is the equivalent of trying to turn a battleship around in a swimming pool, and some of that. So, and then there's not a lot of big companies, and Matt, you've talked about that in the past about how it's sometimes difficult for a big company to do business with a startup size company because they're just not always a good match.
Well, and they send me a 100-page security
RFP,
questionnaire document, and I'm like, nope, don't have time to do this for the $200 a month you're going to pay me.
Yeah, your outsourced legal against their 10 attorneys sitting across the table is no match.
Yeah,
but
waste of money and time.
Back to your point, Matt, it was I got to figure out. And back to your point, Matt Watson.
You can call me Matt and just call him Watson.
Fair enough.
You're the other
This
Matt.
is the Matt and Watson show.
The Matt and Watson show.
Well, it was the Matt and DeCourcy show.
I just want to go on record as saying you two have accomplished bucket list items that I have not yet accomplished, and I just want to call them out right now. So
do it.
So Matt, you're an author, and I think that's really cool.
Thanks.
And you have reached celebrity status where you can demand a 3-pound bucket of blue/green M&Ms.
Yes,
talking to Matt. That's Matt Watson.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing to me.
And once again, why do you need a seahorse in your dressing room?
Well,
and why do you need a dressing room?
For good karma,
that seahorse was not looking good this morning.
For good karma.
Is he not supposed to eat the M&Ms? Because
No,
that
he's
might
not.
be
those don't go together. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe my assistant's feeding him M&Ms.
By the way, so we'll take a break for a fact about Kevin McGinnis, which is probably not going to be a recurring thing on the show, but it is today. Kevin is the founder of the Sprint Accelerator. That's a big deal. I mean, that's like a big deal. Like, think about that. Like, you founded something that over a long, long period of time has had a profound effect on a lot of businesses. We've talked about that here. Like, how many jobs did you create? You know, Watson's got a huge number from Venn and some other things. And, you know, look at that and, like, I mean, these are the things that people do that matter.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And like just showing up, like, you know, having a purpose-driven life or whatever you want to call it, like, is what you're doing, does what you're doing matter? It matters, man. I guarantee you there's a ton of businesses. How many went through the Sprint Accelerator or have? Do you know?
Well, I mean, you're in your 6th year. You've gone an average of, I think the last 2 years they haven't reached 10 in the class because they changed the model, but you're talking somewhere around 40, 50 companies that have come through there. Many of them have stayed in Kansas City and are growing. And
that's awesome. That's what we need.
But that was but getting accepted into that is a timeline moment.
For all those people.
For all those people, that's a big deal for them, you know. And you know, here's the thing: is if people don't take the initiative to do ballsy stuff, like setting this up, because at some point you're setting this up, and people are like, "Yeah, well, this isn't what we do. We're a phone company, you know." And you're like, "Well, might need to do a little more than phones." I actually want to transition into what you're working on now, because that is like. It takes what you've done in the past and it jacked it up on steroids, and it's a way more ambitious thing. We're talking about a whole district, a whole
I'm excited. I want to hear about this.
Dude, it's huge.
I haven't heard about
and
this.
thanks for the invite. I went to a round table. Kevin had invited me to come down and talk about it, and there was quite a few Startup Hustle alumni there. Yeah, but talking about the district, I didn't even realize that you guys were doing this, and it's awesome, and I want you to talk about it.
Yeah, it was one of those things, you know, as I left Sprint in early 18 and kind of reflected on what I wanted to do next, what was going to be the next chapter, and spent some time thinking about what were those moments throughout my career that I wanted to replicate, I wanted more of. And some of them that had come back to me were moments from the Accelerator where I had folks like Beck, who said, "Hey, you kind of changed my life. Like, thanks for starting this program."
Is that Super Dispatch founder?
Yeah.
And then, and there's been other entrepreneurs that have said similar things.
Did they go through the Sprint Accelerator? Yeah, and that's a great company now.
Yeah,
great company. I've talked to Beck before, and he's a really intelligent guy. Great company for our city.
So reflecting on listening to the startups and listening to the founders talk about how that's changed their lives, listening to some of the people that have come through programming and it's changed their trajectory, and how do you just do that on a grander scale? How do you do that so you can impact the entire region? And in 2014, there's an initiative called Casey Rising, which is all of the civic councils, civic organizations had come together to kind of develop a 20-year economic outlook and regional plan. And they had split that into 3 groups. One of them was focused on innovation and entrepreneurship and why that's important to a regional economy. And we had come up with this idea that we needed to extend corporate engagement. We needed more corporations participating in our innovation ecosystem, participating in our entrepreneurial ecosystem. And this idea of innovation hub, how do you bring them together? We don't have a big company in Kansas City that's going to spring $100 million on an innovation center and all this innovation program. We don't have a Microsoft, we don't have an Amazon, we don't have a Procter & Gamble here in Kansas City. So we need to build a platform that allows them to efficiently invest in something they can collectively use. So something like the Sprint Accelerator, except multiple corporations, dozens of corporations from Kansas City all kind of co-opting the opportunity there. But how do you do it so it's good for the region? So it's good for the people that live here. So it's good. So it promotes inclusive prosperity. How do you just exponentially change kind of the city? And that's really was kind of the genesis of Keystone. And spent some time traveling around the country and trying to figure out what were our peer cities doing. We rank, when you look at our 30 peer cities.
So before you go on, and just to kind of simplify that a little bit, Kevin's talking about building a district inside of it, and these exist in a dozen, 15 some cities, like actual city blocks that are dedicated towards their innovation districts. They're like zoned and ready for like startups. And
so what does that mean though?
Getting people together. It's like co-working, but not.
So there's a technical definition, and that's one of the things that I think we found challenging is that a lot of people will say, hey, this mixed-use facility where you've got co-working and you've got, a business and you have that's an innovation district, and that's not really the case. So MIT, Brookings, they've all done research on why does innovation happen in specific places more than others. There's this whole, the world is flat, you can work anywhere, you can do anything because of connectivity and all that. But innovation still happens more specifically in places. And
people need help. Somebody like Beck, he's like, I got an idea, but I don't know about how to do this. I don't know how to do that. So if he can surround himself with peers like him and guys like you and us and other mentors or whatever, then he can get the help he needs.
For sure.
Right?
On the entrepreneurial side, that's exactly
all
right.
That
how do you
stuff.
bring those resources to bear, identify the ones that are going to grow and give them the right resources? On the ideation side, though, innovation-driven entrepreneurship. We always talk about net new jobs come from startups, and everybody talks about small business being where most of that happens. But when you look at a regional economy, small business is sharing dollars within the economy. How do you get dollars in from the outside? It's typically innovation-driven startups. It's the ones that are technology, research, or science. There's some kind of disruptor there where they're actually an enterprise and they're generating the majority of their revenue from outside the market. The creation of those typically happens where you have universities, corporations, entrepreneurs, and risk capital kind of all in the same place. And how do you bring them all together and then create programming that ties them together? It's not just about co-location. But to your point, Matt, we're building a neighborhood.
But the co-location matters. Here's the thing is, if you're like right around the corner or a block away or whatever, think about how easy that becomes to get in front of whomever, and that's one of the things that we've talked about because, Full Scale and Stackify share an office here in Kansas City, and you were just out there. We're colliding. We're growing. Both companies are growing so quickly that, we have to, Full Scale needs to move to its own place soon enough. And, we all live south of downtown in Kansas City, and we're like, God, and the thing that always rattles in my head is like, God, I got to make sure people still are willing to come see us. And if you're really far away from where everyone needs you to be, it makes it harder. There's more obstacles in the way. But if you're right around the corner, sure, I'll stop by. I'll be there in 5 minutes or something like that. You make it really easy, and I think that's important. And then also just the whole concept of hey, we're here to innovate. It's like co-working is the same way. It's like the collisions that sharing a co-working space might be worth the expense just because of the other people you'll meet. It's the same thing, but this is a little more sophisticated and advanced for, eventually, like if you're at WeWork or something like that, you're going to outgrow it.
So let me ask you guys an experiential question, right? So
experiential. I said it correctly this time. I've learned. Sorry.
This has been a challenge?
Yeah, well, it was when we had Corey Moan from BB Caps in here. I said it wrong at least 9 times, and then I quit trying.
Is it in here?
Baby Loves Coding does not have, at least, I haven't read the whole thing. I'm working through it. I have not run into experiential, but it does have algorithm a bunch.
So the best ideas you've ever had, have they been intentional in their creation?
No.
Or do they come in very serendipitous kind of moments?
They were accidents.
They were things that evolve or accidents or aha moments. Yeah.
And I think that's what you create when you create one of these places there was last Thursday in Kansas City, there were 5 entrepreneurial events all over the city.
Yeah.
And I talked to a lot of people that were struggling with which one do I go to? What if they were all, or what if 3 of the 5 were in kind of a similar location in a similar neighborhood? Mm-hmm. And then worst case scenario, when they were over, they all spill out into the same bar, they all spill out into the same restaurant, and then you get people starting to talk and share.
And to me, that's almost how I envision all of San Francisco.
Right.
Like all of San Francisco is that way. There's so many tech jobs.
Or
tech
Austin
people.
or Tel Aviv or New York now.
It's just like the whole city.
Right.
You know?
Well, some of the things, like there was an article in the paper today talking, Kansas City just shot way up the rankings list for like startups, for like the percentage of businesses, for the growth and whatever. And it's because of stuff like this. Like we're growing, we're evolving. And here's the thing. We have listeners in 174 countries. If you're not even here, we're in the middle of the United States. We are the 25th biggest market in the United States. It's not like we're not New York, we're not Boston, we're not San Francisco, Miami, any of that stuff. We are Kansas City. So, but with that, you get a lot of advantages. There's a lot of cost savings and stuff like that. So, one of the things that we talked about at your roundtable meeting was, highlighting the fact like our city's actually it's become cool again, and like our downtown and some of those areas. So you're talking about having the innovation district, but what's important as well is to have other things that not just like, hey, here's a district and it's just put it in the middle of a cornfield. It won't be the same. But what you're talking about doing here in town is right next to the cultural centers. So this will be down near Crossroads. Downtown.
Yeah, where exactly would this be? And is it a group of existing buildings that are all going to change to be mixed use, or like how does this actually play out?
Yeah, so there's different models for how these things come about. Typically, they're built around an anchor institution, like an R1, the top level of a research university in a lot of our peer cities. We don't have one of those.
Okay.
And so the other ways is it's usually an urban revitalization project.
Okay.
But where do you find fill-in opportunities where you can kind of build this from the ground up?
Where you're also not going to like ridiculously gentrify the existing community as well. Yeah.
Exactly. And so when we looked at the Kansas City region, which by the way is this huge geography that's split by all of these divisions, which is part of our problem.
And states.
And we looked at all of these 12 areas around the city and benchmarked them against kind of the best practices of placemaking. Close to urban core, close to creative class, right? That's a huge piece of what we're talking about. The ability to be accessible to the entire region, walkable though. I mean, downtown made a lot of sense. So the 18th Street corridor between the East Crossroads and 18th and Vine is kind of where we're targeting right now. So literally the first parcel of land that we're looking to develop and put a new building on is the northeast corner of 18th and Troost.
So do you guys have to somebody has to go acquire all this land and buildings, or is there stuff there today, or is it not stuff there today? Or?
It's going to be a mix of those things, right? So this first parcel of land, we were awarded an RFP. Kansas City Area Transportation Authority had put out an RFP. They own the land.
I mean, obviously, there's some neighborhoods down there that are probably pretty blighted that you could bulldoze a whole part of a neighborhood. I mean, if you really had to or wanted to.
There's some areas
you don't even need to do that because I saw your plan for it. Some of it's just like parking, like one of the areas is like just a huge parking lot for buses.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not you're not displacing really anyone. It's like, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but not really. I mean, it was very repurposable.
Yeah, you have to.
And you guys have put a lot of thought and consideration into not being disruptive, to like people's homes. Like, hey, where can we put this and not like make everyone have to move out because we just shot the real estate value up and they can't pay the taxes on their home, and now we've created a different problem trying to make something else better.
Yeah, this isn't come in and get it because it's cheap. This is come in and get it because it's the right location for the programming and for what you want to do. And I think one of the other things that we can add is the opportunity to really kind of bridge, I think, the gap from a population perspective in where is tech and where is the east side community in terms
that part of
investment.
town is definitely moving away from where it normally is, right? Like that's a little further east than normally you would see these things. Right.
That's good. By the way, I have something to tell you guys that I think you'll be excited because it helps the economic development of our city. So Full Scale, Matt and I own Full Scale, fullscale.io. Go check it out. We just became the official development partner of Launch KC.
Nice.
So we're giving a $10,000 development credit to all 15 companies that are going to go through that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And that's the kind of stuff that I think is important. That we have clients that are all over the world at this point, and a couple hundred employees growing really quickly. But with that, we are hometown advocates, and these are companies that are going to be present here in our hometown. Some of them are going to move here for that, and we're trying to branch out and do more of that. And that's the kind of stuff we would want to support in your innovation district.
Yeah, gratuitous shout out to you guys. Seriously, the networking opportunities that you provide people right now with what you guys are doing with the Sweet and Greet.
Those are fun.
The opportunity to elevate what we're doing here through what you're doing with this podcast. And then also the generosity I think you guys have demonstrated with Full Scale back to the development community, back to the entrepreneurial community. Thank you. From the community, thank you.
Between that and the software investments that we've made, we're well on pace to hit the $1 million that we thought we were gonna pledge back to our hometown. That was the thing that came out, and that was ambitious. Because our company's still young, and but that's all driven by the growth of our company. And we work with a lot of local companies, and they're all over. They all have the same problem. They can't find software developers, and we help them with that. We make it easy, but part of that, it's the revenue that's created from that we put a portion of that aside and put it back into our hometown.
So tell me more about this innovation district. You
Sure.
said the first thing you're going to do is build a building. So is that going to be
what the
working space?
But wait! Before we talk about it, I think the first thing we need to do is get something out of the way.
All right.
Because I don't want to have to interrupt Kevin later to do this.
All
but
right.
Kevin is probably the most excited of all guests we've ever had to play mixtape.
Oh.
It's nervous anxiety.
So today's winner of mixtape, not only do they get to fire the money gun. The money gun's filled with hundreds today.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Hundreds.
Crazy.
That's what a loaded money gun sounds like, filled with hundreds. So we're going to just get this out of the way, and then you're going to tell us more about this innovation. You might even pay for it based on the money, what's in the money gun.
Yeah, let's go.
Watson's nervous because he's the one that loaded it. The first kiss on a bridge with the crush from your youth.
Name the song.
What song would be
I've got one.
Is it "Fuck You" by CeeLo Green?
No.
Okay.
That's the cheat, right?
Yeah, it's a cheat code.
The cheat code.
Yeah, although, it's a little dicey on this one.
Now
I've got a fun one.
Yeah, I can tell you what I would want playing now if it were to happen again. I can't think about what might have been.
Well, this is about you being in control, and I need to focus because I need to come up with something. I'm not known for being romantic, so
I'm just going to throw out all of me, John Legend.
You have to. I don't even know it. You're going to probably have to sing it.
I'm not going to do that. No,
Come on.
I'm staring.
How bad do you want to win this?
Because I'm staring into a microphone. Maybe
and you're on video technically. And when we finally get around to uploading this, we'll.
All right, I'm going to go with Sir Mix-a-Lot's "Baby Got Back."
Man, God, that's tough to beat.
That's romantic. That's a sweet moment. I'm just trying to picture that. In my
First
head,
kiss
how
in
that
your
goes.
youth, man.
Yeah.
You know what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
I'm going with "Nookie" by Limp Bizkit.
Oh. Ooh.
I came into this world as a reject.
You did.
Look into these eyes. Should I read the whole?
Yeah.
Do a dramatic reading? Well,
Yeah.
we got to vote here. Kevin, I love you, but I'm voting for Watson. It's rare.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. You can't vote for yourself.
No, so I'm going to vote for him. So that means you got the deciding vote.
So I'm the deal breaker.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yes! Yes!
Hang on.
Whoop,
Let me
whoop,
prep
whoop.
the video for this. Cause
Yes,
I know
give me this.
Wait, hang on. Here you go, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Fire the money gun.
Full of hundreds today.
Let's do this.
Oh.
And it's
Woo! Look at that.
legit full of hundreds. Check the video out on our Instagram page. All right, we're getting back to work.
You don't see this every day. I'm just
You
gonna go
really
on record.
don't.
I mean, sometimes you do.
Sitting here taking pictures. God, this is a lot of money.
Yeah.
How much of this, did you count it? Do you know how much?
No, I know exactly how much it is.
Count
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Now give me my money.
Well, Kevin, I'm sorry you didn't win.
This was a
but-
special occasion. There
Yeah.
will probably never be hundreds in the money
No
gun
doubt.
again.
So back to innovation districts.
Right.
God, I hate it when Watson
So how does
wins.
this actually work? So you said you've got the land, you got the place picked out. So is the goal now to build like a whole bunch of co-working spaces around there, or little corporate offices? Like Sprint has a little office there. Like what is the goal?
So spent time last year going and visiting about 14 of these innovation districts around the country, and trying to understand what makes them tick, what makes them work.
And where were some of those?
Yeah, so like Tech Square in Atlanta, the American Tobacco Campus in Durham, North Carolina.
Bad name.
Cool place.
Yeah.
Extremely cool place.
Unfortunate name.
Cortex in St. Louis, when you talk about our sister city, 16 Tech in Indianapolis, Kindle Square in Boston, places like that. And so
what were some of those places doing that really stood out?
Yeah, so what you realize when you go is it's not about the real estate. It's really about, who are the stakeholders? How did you build the programming around whatever the regional advantage or strength is? And how do you get those stakeholders to all engage with each other? And so that's really the focus. This is a priceless moment. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely the first time that Watson's had a handful of hundreds. My God. I'll take the handful of ones.
Yeah. It's not about the first building. There's existing building stock down there. And so how do we get access to some space and get started on the programming right away? So we're looking at how do you bring the universities. We've got 7 universities who've kind of signed on to be a part of this. Yeah, it's just not the same, Matt. It really isn't.
Sorry, I got the handful of ones. God, for those of you listening, I'm sorry that we clearly have ADD. By the way, you get the $1,000 Supreme dollars, good for one drink of your choice in the full scale suite.
This is great.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's signed though.
Yeah, it's special. It's actually it was Blake Miller's, but you can
limited
have it.
edition.
Yeah. Shows you the street value of our winnings.
All right,
here.
sorry, we're distracting you.
We're going to get some space, and we're going to get started on programming before we get the first building up. I mean,
so a lot of it's going to be educational.
For sure. Education.
Free educational
entrepreneurship, a mix.
Okay.
Right? It's just, I look at it as it's building an artificial reef. Right now we're kind of lowering streetcars into the ocean. Over time it kind of becomes this organic ecosystem, and it's going to be for-profits, non-profits. We've got 7 universities who've signed on so far to bring programming and re-anchor institutes.
So, but part of it is designed to be like office space and co-working space and all that sort of stuff too, right?
For sure. Yeah. Okay. How can you build density? Really?
Yeah.
Density and proximity. Like you really want to create an environment where you're fostering these serendipitous collisions we always talk about.
So as you talk about redeveloping the real estate around there, like who will pay for that real estate? Like who will build those buildings?
It's an interesting question because half of this district is in what's called an opportunity zone.
That's a hot topic. Yeah, I was talking to Luke Einsel from Thirsty Coconut, who's been on the show before. He's a huge advocate of the term again?
Opportunity zones?
Yeah, and those are areas that are almost like kind of tax sheltery.
Yeah, it came out of the 2017 Tax Act, and so there's a lot of incentive to put capital in on the real estate development, on the buildings, and the way the opportunity zones are written, they're written for entrepreneurs, so that capital gains exemption and capital gains opportunity also applies to the businesses that operate within there.
Nice.
And so I don't think there's a shortage of people that want to invest. It's do we get the right investors?
But it's not the city, right? Like the city's not going to pay for the buildings and stuff. It's going to be private money.
But the economic zones,
the city
create the incentives that make anybody really want to.
But you guys have to go find a private investor that wants to build the building and do that part of it.
Right. It's a combination of those things. The city's going to invest from an infrastructure perspective, from an incentives perspective, some of those types of things. The universities are going to come in and hopefully over time be able to build out facilities, and they all want kind of an urban location. Most of the universities that we're talking to are in a rural market.
Right. Yep.
And love it to death. I'm a Jayhawk, but Lawrence is not a beacon to draw industry over there.
Yeah, the only real college we have in Kansas City is UMKC. Everybody else is 50, 100, 200 miles away.
Yeah, so how do we build on that and pull those universities together and help them innovate, just like big corporations? They have the same challenge, and they're all faced with the same struggle. Post-secondary education is under attack, and rightfully so, too expensive, not really working for a lot of what we need in industry. So how do you bring them closer to industry? How do you bring them closer together to innovate? And so they'll pay eventually to be there, but we got to build the density and we got to build things up. So you got to go find a private investor to kind of lead the charge on that first building, and we've been able to do that.
So in some sense, is this a little bit of what they tried to accomplish with the Startup Village? But this is a much bigger scale?
This is much different from a scale perspective.
Right.
The challenge with Startup Village from the very beginning was it was never going to get to scale. It
right.
was in a neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, and so and those who are listening, we had a small area in Kansas City called the Startup Village, and it was basically a bunch of homes. There was a little bit of office space nearby.
I mean, technically that wasn't zoned for anything other than like...
But it's where Google Fiber started, so there was this kind of a rush to like these were all the first houses that had Google Fiber. What was the cool stuff you could do with it? And it was a fairly inexpensive area to live in, I believe.
It is.
You know,
yeah, because the homes were smaller. I mean,
it was fairly
you could buy
inexpensive.
one for 150 grand.
Startup Village gave us three things. It gave us a great marketing opportunity to talk about Google Fiber and entrepreneurship. It really led the charge in the community recognizing entrepreneurship was a thing that we needed to be focused on again. It was kind of the first opportunity that we had in generations to do that again. And then it also gave us Adam and Matthew.
Adam and Matthew.
True.
Yeah.
Adam
and
was,
he was on
the
show.
We just published, if you want to listen, it's called Startup Communities. And it's just talking about the importance of startup communities in and around wherever you're at.
And that's why I kind of think...
And your version is like the advanced version of that. It's like the
that's how I think about
evolutionary product,
This is the next generation of that.
We're sponsors of the Kansas City Startup Foundation, too.
How do you drop... how do you bring place together in Kansas City? And really what I'm building isn't an innovation district, it's an innovation community.
Yeah.
And how do you do that in a way that scales to a global magnitude, where Kansas City's on the map, not just because of its regional entrepreneurship or its national entrepreneurship, but where we're actually bringing stakeholders together around what are some of those industries, what are some of those focus areas where we're on the map from a global perspective.
I like to think that Kansas City's mainly on the map because of the Startup Hustle podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when the citizens of Earth think Kansas City, they don't think of the world champion Royals or the Kansas City Chiefs or Garmin. They're like, oh yeah, that's where Startup Hustle is recorded.
That's right.
They'll use Garmin to find us, though.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah,
guys.
but I think that once we are rich enough from the podcast that generates no revenue, that we'll be able to get Google to take us off the map.
So how do you control who sets up camp in this district? Like, okay, you create this space, get office space, and next thing you know, like a doctor wants to lease space on the 17th floor in this new building, and you're like, nope, we don't want doctors here. So, like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so first best practice that we kind of took from these other innovation districts was you need to create a kind of a convening force, an independent convening force, and that's what the Keystone Community Corporation is today. We're an independent, pending 501(c)(3)
It's like almost like the homeowners association that dictates what goes on here.
We're the independent broker that brings the stakeholders together, but we'll also be designated as master planner developer of the district. So we have to work on a governance model. We have to engage community leaders to understand what the community wants. We have to engage the city and make sure that we've got the right zoning, building regulations, all of those things. But at the end of the day, then they become somewhat the arbitrator of how do you curate a mixed use, healthy, vibrant innovation community.
You know what Kansas City needs? It needs an IT park like we have in the Philippines. And our office at Full Scale in Cebu is in a place called the IT Park. And it's probably 20, 30 high-rise buildings all in this one little district. And the first floor, the ground floor all the way around it is retail. So there's banks and there's Starbucks and there's Kentucky Fried Chicken, and Jollibee and all this stuff. But above all of it, in every one of these buildings is like Full Scale, we're there, and over 100 other businesses that are all, in that case, IT related or call centers and things like that. But they're all tightly congested in this one little area.
Yeah, it's all about that proximity and connectivity.
And that's, Kansas City doesn't really have that. We don't have, and that district there in Cebu is growing like crazy. They're building new high-rise buildings one after another as fast as they can.
You really do look around and they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's what we need in Kansas City. Like, we don't have that district. It's like we don't have like that IT park or whatever. Like, everybody wants to be in this area.
Those are technically economic development zones there too.
Yeah, we get huge tax abatements.
They call it PEZA, PEZA, and we have like a 4.5-year tax abatement, and we have to be within these PEZA zones, which are basically economic development zones.
You know, one thing we talk about when we talk about Keystones, we talk about creating a front door to the innovation economy here in Kansas City, and we run into this same challenge. Like, how do you build a place for Kansas City to be close in proximity and foster, the growth of more innovation-driven startups, the support for those that are there that need resources, and being co-located should help be able to apply those resources. But the other thing is, we have resources outside of Kansas City that have always looked at Kansas City as a place where they'd like to be, but they don't know where to go.
Right.
And for them to come to Kansas City today, as spread out as we are and as fragmented as
we are, very fragmented.
They have to overinvest because they have to go to Johnson County, they have to go downtown, they have to go to Midtown.
Well, Cerner's a good example of that with their campuses like triangulated around the city. I mean, just,
they're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if that was the reason why, but...
So the idea is if we can create something like what you just described, then it's easier for even external resources to come plug in and get access to the critical mass they need to be successful.
Well, something like
right?
Cerner is no different than what Full Scale would want to do in Manila. Like, we don't want one office in downtown Manila because our employees live all over the place, and we kind of want to surround the city, right?
Either
to grab talent
right
from everywhere.
In the exact center of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know.
But I'm really excited to think that if we, like the model of what they have in Cebu, like if we could build an IT park, right? We have this, next thing you know, it's 2 blocks, 3 blocks, 4 blocks, 6 blocks, city blocks.
So what that did is that reduced, those zones there reduced that fragmented feeling.
Yeah, they have 2 zones.
So we know that when we're within that zone that there's already a huge number of people that have grown accustomed to working there.
Yeah.
So they probably live in
the
close proximity
there.
Or they're used to at least traveling there. And
power, internet, everything.
And then another thing too is just the available access to, like, can you go down to the ground floor and there's stuff.
Yeah.
Restaurants or coffee shops or
there.
whatever, and that it's nice, that it's safe, that it's modern, and mainly that it's accessible. And there's a couple of them.
They have a business park and IT park there.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not downtown there. It's actually a few miles or kilometers.
Yeah, a few kilometers.
How far is that anyway? No one even knows.
It's like 3 miles away.
Watson probably does.
All right, so a little history lesson, just real quick. So why is it called Keystone? So in 1860, Kansas City was, I think, the 10th largest city in the region.
Oh man, we're dropping.
In the region?
In the region.
Oh, in the region.
Okay.
In 1865, Kansas City had actually gone from 4,400 residents to 4,000 residents, and St. Joe and Leavenworth had doubled in size.
Yeah,
and
I've
were
heard
like
that
over
before.
15,000 or whatever.
Sandy was talking about that when he was in here, yeah.
And so
Possum trod?
Yeah, and so 1867, a group of entrepreneurs decided that they were going to go, we'll call it steal the rights to build the first permanent crossing of the Missouri River. And in 1869, we opened the Hannibal Bridge in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. And in 1870, we had gone from 4,400 people in 1865 to 32,000 people.
Wow.
And we were double the size of any other cities. And it also opened up 3 new industries: the cattle industry, the railroad industry, and the
all because we
communications
built
industry.
a bridge.
Because we built infrastructure.
Yeah.
So to your point about we need the infrastructure.
Yeah.
This is, to me, the next kind of moment for us. It was built by the Keystone Bridge Company. And so that's one of the reasons that we wanted to call it the Keystone District, was this is that piece of infrastructure that opens the door to those new industries. Second reason is, if you think about what a keystone is, in architecture, it's that last stone you put in a stone arch that kind of supports both sides.
Yep.
And so we're kind of connecting large corporations, entrepreneurs, universities, and industry. So we're kind of that keystone architecture piece. But it's also, in a biology sense, it's that species that optimizes an ecosystem. So things should exist all over town. Like, we're not saying we want to replace all the good things that are happening around Kansas City, but what's that one thing we can do that really optimizes the entire ecosystem? We think place is the answer. And so that's the reason that we're calling it Keystone. But I think it goes to your point about, do we have the right infrastructure?
Right.
So what can people here do to support what you're doing and get involved with this?
So tenancy is the first thing to think about. And that, the meeting that you were in, Matt, a couple weeks ago, it was the conversation around, would you locate your company there? Yeah. As this thing gets developed.
I raised my hand. I said I would be interested in Full Scale having some kind of presence down there. Sure.
Yeah, so I think over time, thinking about tenancy, I think thinking about, participation and what can you do, it's really how do you bring the stakeholders together. So if you're a large company that's looking for innovation, this is going to be an opportunity for you to share expense, share risk, but get an exponential outcome because you're partnered with all these universities, other corporations, and you're engaged in the startup community. So the big shout out to how do you get involved is for the big companies that are trying to figure out their innovation stories. This is a really easy, low risk, low expense way of doing that and coming in partnering to make that happen.
I love it.
Kevin's on the current same pay scale that we're on here at the podcast, and I don't point that out for any other reason. Like, your intention's pretty pure here, man. Like, I mean, this is meaning like you've been a volunteer for something huge.
Yeah, my startup friends get really, my entrepreneurial founder friends get really agitated with me, and they say, why did you start a nonprofit? Like, what were you thinking? And it's because it's the right way to do this.
Yeah.
So, over time, hopefully I get a salary. Hopefully we make some money doing this. But for the most part,
I said that years ago.
How do you change the city?
Can I borrow that money?
No, you can have the ones or the Supreme dollars. You want the ones?
No.
All right.
You can take the Supreme dollars over the ones?
Yeah, because I don't know where those ones have been, man. They look they look a little weathered.
Well, you get a stack of singles like that,
Money's dirty. Money's
Whatever.
dirty.
Is it? Is it though?
I got some up for my kids' piggy bank. I mean, I just keep collecting it.
You're
All for the money
You've
gun.
been robbing
Yeah,
your
all for the
kids'
money
piggy
gun,
bank for the
yeah,
money
they got
gun?
singles
Oh man.
wherever I can find.
By the way,
singles.
for those wondering, the money gun does also accurately and effectively fire mixtape cards. So if you want to go to mixtape the game, buy the cards and then get a money gun, it will also work. I recommend doing that in either order. So, well, Kevin, thanks for stopping by. I want to keep having you come in and update us on this. Obviously, it's not its infancy, but it's in its adolescent years, and then it's going to get all angsty in its teen years, and then it'll grow up and look back at all of it and say, wow, was that really me?
Yeah, looking forward to coming back. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited. I would definitely consider moving my company there. So I think that would. Yeah, definitely interested.
Well, anyway, wherever you're listening, check it out. Your hometown might have an innovation district. If you're here in Kansas City, do something to get behind the Keystone Community Corporation. Check Kevin McGinnis out. He's everywhere. Not hard to find info on you.
Yeah, I'll put a one plug in. It's kind of it's not there yet, but we're going to have it live. Right now it's just a landing page, but keystonedistrict.org is where we're going to be providing updates, where people can get information and stay connected to what we're doing within the community.
Yeah.
So keystonedistrict.org.
Awesome. Thank you.
See you guys next time.